Day 25 of the Iran war, and attacks are continuing on both sides, even after President Trump said he's holding off on going after Iran's energy infrastructure for 5 days. Trump saying U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner spoke with a top person in Iran on Sunday, but that it's not the new supreme leader. Iranian officials, for their part, say they're ruling out discussions with the U.S.
The loss and destruction here are still painfully fresh and shockingly clear. Rescue teams are working. Some bodies have been taken out. Others still trapped under the rubble.
Day 28 of the war. The United States and Israel are bombing Iran. Iran is firing missiles and drones into American bases across the Middle East. The Strait of Hormuz is blockaded. Oil prices are climbing by the hour. 13 American military bases have been evacuated. American soldiers are hiding in civilian hotels that are now being targeted. And right now, today, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are sitting in a room negotiating with a senior Iranian official, not the new supreme leader, not a named decision maker, someone. And no one in Washington is telling you who or what was said, or whether any of it means anything at all. Friedrich Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, just got off the phone from the Group of Seven and told the world on camera that Trump and Netanyahu have zero plan, zero way out, no strategy, just airstrikes and civilian casualties and a war that has no defined ending. America's closest allies are not whispering this anymore. They are saying it directly, on the record, into microphones, in public. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is one of them. He has a message for Donald Trump, and it is not what Trump wanted to hear. Watch.
But a lot of what he said is designed to put pressure on me to change my mind and to get dragged into this war. But I'm not going to do so. I'm the British Prime Minister, and I act in the British national interest, and always will. So whatever the pressure, whoever it's coming from, I'm not going to waver on this. I will put the British national interest first. I don't think it's in our national interest to get dragged into this war. It is in our interests to protect British lives and British interests and our allies in the Gulf region, and that's what we're doing.
That was not diplomatic language. That was a man drawing a hard line in public because private pressure stopped working. Keir Starmer just told the world that Trump's bullying is producing the opposite of its intended result. Every social media attack, every mockery, every demand pushing allies further away from this war, not toward it. And then there is the European Union. Its top foreign policy official sat across from Marco Rubio at the Group of Seven and asked him one direct question. She asked when the United States was actually going to hold Russia accountable for what it is doing right now. Rubio did not answer. Here is Kaja Kallas.
Of course, we're worried about this. We have seen this for a year already, that Russia is really trying to achieve, and get those territories that they haven't been able to conquer militarily in 12 years, to get those territories, around the negotiation table. This is clearly a wrong approach. It is, of course, the Russian playbook of negotiations, that they are demanding something that has never been theirs, and that's why we are also flagging that this is the trap that we should not walk in.
What Kallas just described is not a strategic miscalculation, not a difference of opinion between allies. What she described is a government being told, in plain language, by its own partners, that it is walking into a trap and walking in anyway. The administration calls what they are doing with Russia engagement. They say engagement produces results. But here is what this particular engagement produced. Russian satellites photographed Diego Garcia on March 24th. They photographed Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia on March 25th. They photographed Incirlik Air Base in Turkey and Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar on March 26th. Those coordinates were passed to Iran. Iran used them. Not engagement, not diplomacy. A targeting pipeline, operating in real time, against American soldiers. Here is what the record shows, in order, from the smallest detail to the one that should end the conversation. Russia and Iran formalized their military alliance in early 2025 with a comprehensive strategic partnership. Iran's own foreign minister Araghchi confirmed to NBC News that military cooperation between the two countries is, in his words, no secret. That is the foundation. Then the KC-135 Stratotankers went down, the aerial refueling aircraft, the planes that keep every fighter jet in the theater flying, gone. Then the E-3G Sentry went down, the airborne early warning and control aircraft out of Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma, the plane that sees every incoming threat before anyone else does. the plane that makes every other plane, every ship, every base in the region survivable. 4 independent sources confirmed to NBC News that Russia provided Iran with the exact location of American forces. The same confirmation came from CNN, CBS News, and The Washington Post. 4 outlets, 4 independent source sets, 1 conclusion. Then came 6 flag-draped transfer cases at Dover Air Force Base. 6 Army reservists, killed in Kuwait. The day after the United States launched military operations against Iran, Trump attended the transfer ceremony, then boarded Air Force One, then dismissed a reporter's question about Russia's role as, in his exact words, a stupid question. That is the ascending ladder, refueling planes, surveillance planes, 6 Americans dead, and a president who called the question stupid. Here is what accountability looks like when this administration applies it to other people. When Ukraine received American funding and used it to defend against Russian invasion, members of Congress demanded audits, launched investigations, held months of hearings, and called it a national security crisis. When Republican Congressman Michael McCall of Texas, not a Democrat, the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, a man who has defended this administration on issue after issue, said publicly that Iran armed Russia with drones to kill Ukrainians, and now Putin is returning the favor by helping target and kill Americans. The White House response was to have Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt say the intelligence sharing was not making a difference because the United States was, in her words, completely decimating them. When Kaja Kallas asked Marco Rubio at the Group of 7 when the United States was going to get tough on Russia, when she reminded him that he had stood in that same room and promised sanctions and accountability, that question was not answered, not rebutted, not even acknowledged. The subject moved on. Russia providing targeting data to kill Americans. No consequence, no sanction, no named response. Ukraine spending American money to fight Russia. Months of congressional hearings, that is the standard, applied consistently. To the wrong side. Steve Witkoff went on CNBC and said Russia had denied sharing intelligence with Iran. Then he said, and this is a direct quote, "We can take them at their word. Let's hope that they're not sharing." The Secretary of Defense of the United States, when asked whether Russia's assistance was putting American personnel in danger, said no one's putting us in danger. That is what Pete Hegseth said. On 60 Minutes, while 6 Americans were already dead, the question that was never answered is the only one that matters. If Ukraine's intelligence service knew, and Zelenskyy posted the specific dates, the specific bases, the specific satellite passes publicly, why did the United States government not act on information its own ally was broadcasting to the entire world? That question was asked in multiple briefings, by multiple reporters, from multiple outlets. It was never answered, not once. Absence is its own kind of answer. While this was happening, the Houthis entered the war. They announced they have the capability to shut down commerce in the Red Sea entirely, which would send the price of oil to approximately $200 per barrel. They said they are not doing it yet. They are waiting until they are ready to escalate further. In the meantime, they are launching ballistic missiles at Israel on a near-daily basis. Israel's own IDF chief of staff has said publicly that Israeli forces are facing catastrophic consequences, that they do not have the military equipment left to continue at the current pace. That is not an assessment from an enemy. That is coming from the commander of the Israeli military. Meanwhile, a Pakistani official told the Financial Times directly that the alliance with the United States and Saudi Arabia has produced nothing, no new investment, no deterrence. The pact, in the official's own words, is becoming a problem. Pakistan thought it was getting a quid pro quo. It got nothing. India pushed even further away. Trump launched a trade war against India, publicly mocked Modi, and drove New Delhi directly toward a tighter alliance with Moscow. Then Trump removed sanctions on Russian oil. Now India is buying that oil. Russia is making billions of dollars a day from it, and using that money to fund the intelligence operation targeting American soldiers. That is the chain. Trump insults India. India buys Russian oil. Russia makes billions. Russia uses billions to photograph American bases. Iran uses the photographs to kill Americans. Trump removes the sanctions that were the only financial pressure on the country running that operation. You funded every link in that chain, through your tax dollars, through your gas prices, through the premium you are paying at the pump right now because the Strait of Hormuz is blockaded and global oil supply has been disrupted. That is not an abstraction. That is a number on a receipt. Zelenskyy flew to Saudi Arabia, then the UAE, then Qatar. He signed 10-year defense partnership agreements with all 3 countries, contracts worth billions, joint drone production facilities, Electronic warfare systems. Battle-tested interceptor technology developed against the same Iranian Shahed drones that Russia has been firing at Ukrainian cities for 3 years. According to Al Jazeera, France 24, and Breaking Defense, 11 countries have now requested Ukrainian military expertise to defend against Iranian drone attacks, not American expertise, Ukrainian. The country this administration is withholding Patriot missiles from is now the security provider of last resort for America's Gulf allies. Zelenskyy said it plainly. He said there must be pressure on the aggressor. He said lifting sanctions is certainly not pressure. Then he used one word, strange. He said it looks strange. Strange is a very specific word. Strange is the word you use when you have already said everything else and no one has acted. Strange is the word a man uses when he is standing in front of an obvious conclusion and is not yet willing to say it out loud, because saying it out loud would change everything. On day 38 of the war, a 2-week ceasefire was announced. Iran's Supreme National Security Council declared victory. J.D. Vance called it a fragile truce. Attacks continued in the Gulf on the first day it took effect. Israel said it did not apply to Lebanon and immediately struck Beirut. Lebanon declared a national day of mourning. The BBC independently verified that the United States was likely responsible for a strike on a residential area in Lamar, Iran. At least 21 people were killed. The United States declined to comment. A fragile truce is not a plan. A 2-week pause is not an exit. And a government that spent 38 days dismissing the question of why it removed sanctions on the country helping to kill its own soldiers has not answered that question. It has only bought 2 more weeks before someone has to ask it again.